Hey folks, Dr. Shawn Baker here again. Let's talk about what our evolutionary past may mean to us with regard to what kind of diet we may best survive on today or thrive on. Is it a diet full of whole grains, vegetables? Is it meat? Is it 30 bananas a day? To find out, let's look for some clues in the past and see what our ancestors might have eaten, and perhaps more importantly, what they did not eat. And from there, we can piece together what might be an appropriate diet for humans of our species. Now, stick around the end, I'll give you an overall take of what I think about this. Now, clue number one, ancient fruits, vegetables, and grains were very much different than the foods we see today. While you can walk through a modern supermarket and find grains, vegetables, fruits year-round, our ancient ancestors did not have that sort of luxury, because our modern practices and the produce that we derive from that are results of millennia of cultivation, hybridization, genetic modifications. The fruits and vegetables and grains of the past were very much different. In fact, broccoli didn't even exist back then. Bananas were very different from the bananas you might find today. Wild bananas in the past had thick, tough skins. They're very fibrous in texture and very large, hard seeds. These are very unlike the modern hybridized banana, which is basically just a bag of sugar and starch. Now, corn, one of the major first crops in the United States, thought first to be domesticated around 7,000 years ago. Very much different from what it was in the past. Today's corn has multiple grains and kernels, very different from the primitive corn that would have been found by our ancestors, as we see in this particular picture. These clues suggest that ancient fruits, vegetables, and grains were less nutritious, a less reliable source of calories than they are today, and in the case of fruit, possibly filled with more anti-nutrients and seeds than they do today. Now, the availability of fruits, vegetables, and grains varied widely throughout the world. Ancient ancestors' fruits, vegetables, and grains were difficult to find. In many cases, required a lot of resources, time, and energy to make it safe. Logically, it isn't feasible to assume that prehistoric humans subsisted primarily on fruits, vegetables, and grains. Now, first, the availability of these plants would have been restricted both geographically, climate conditions would have an impact on that, and then also seasonally. So gathering enough plants and subsequently processing them into something edible and detoxifying would have taken an extraordinary amount of time and effort. Additionally, the presence of anti-nutrients would have been much likely higher back then than even they are today. Consequences of these anti-nutrients would have naturally deterred many humans due to the amount of digestive stress and inflammation they would have caused. Now, the fossil records seem to show that ancient humans were primarily meat eaters. This 1989 paper discusses evidence around prehistoric humans being primarily meat eaters. Now, using evidence from fossilized human remains, they found that the diet of Middle Neolithic humans who lived in that area were based on hunting and appreciable gathering of some marine mollusks. So basically, big old animals and a little bit of seafood here. Now, this is reinforced by the wide availability of these things throughout the world. Remember, everywhere you go in the world, animals are pretty much in that niche with very rare exceptions, whereas a lot of these plants are only found in very discrete areas. Now, obviously, there's numerous cave paintings throughout the world depicting hunting. This kind of reinforces that it was a very important aspect of early society. Fat was a key energy source for ancient humans. In the book from 2010, the Fat Detection, Taste, Texture, and Post-Ingestive Effects, the author notes that the human fossil record indicates that major changes in both brain size and diet occurred in association with the emergence of early members of the genus Homo between 2 and 1.7 million years ago. The author states that based on this evidence, the increased consumption of dietary fat appears to have been a vital component in the increased size of prehistoric human brains. And a 2011 paper suggests that ancient humans were in fact fat hunters, based on choosing the fattest animals they could find. Based on the research observations, ancient humans hunted and produced tools that were specifically designed to get the most fat out of the animal. The human digestive tract is designed very differently from a classic herbivore. So to prioritize energy for brain development and subsequent energy requirements, the human gut evolved to be smaller in size compared to other primates. You maybe compare our gut to, say, a chimpanzee or a gorilla. They have much distended big guts. It's all filled with intestines, which we no longer have. This smaller human gut evolved to be more dependent on nutrient-dense, energy-dense foods, specifically like fat. This is very different from many herbivores. Now, ruminant herbivores, cows, goats, things like that, have multi-chambered stomachs, or rumens, as part of that is designed to spend a lot of time breaking down all this complex fiber that we don't have. Now, non-ruminant herbivores like horses, some of the primates we mentioned, have an extremely large cecum and colon as a fermentation chamber, which, again, we as modern humans no longer have. Noted in this 2007 paper, humans have a single stomach, so we're monogastric creatures, an elongated small intestine, a small cecum, and a relatively small colon. According to the authors, this suggests that humans have a reliance on high quality diet in which meat is very much a predominant component. So what does this mean for you? So, I mean, again, we can't know for sure what early humans ate, but it does give us some level of applicability of what we should eat today. You know, no one's saying that we should give up cars and houses and things like that because our ancient cavemen do that. But, you know, zebras in Africa have been eating more or less the same thing for millions and millions of years, and no one would suggest to the zebras to go pick out their food from the grocery store. They're going to continue to do what they've been observed doing. Now, one of the criticisms is, you know, if we look at hunter-gatherer societies today, they're nothing like they would have been hundreds of thousands of years ago when they were big, giant, mega herbivores everywhere and relatively easy to kill. So we have plenty of access to big, fatty animals, and really, the evidence is pretty clear that we were able to kill them easily and eat them whenever we wanted to. That gave rise to the abundance of energy that allowed us to develop the big brain that we have today. And so it indicates that we probably do well on that sort of stuff. The most important thing is that what happens today, and what I see today, is people eating meat-based diet to include adequate amounts of fat thrive in that situation. So that's probably the biggest clue here. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. All right, we'll talk to you soon.